The Miami Hurricanes offense is letting the team down. You knew that already, but we have to break down the factors because there are at least 5 reasons why.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. On this loaded episode, now we're not going to lead off with this because we need to talk about the issues first, but we will break down, as unlikely as it may be, a scenario that could get the Miami Hurricanes into the college football playoff, providing Miami wins out. Now, no guarantee that happens, but one game at a time. They have a very winnable game coming up against Syracuse, and there are recruiting targets to talk about because the visitor list is out. There are some key flip candidates in the class of 2026 that Miami's trying to land with less than a month until National Signing Day. Some big-time players from future classes as well, 2027, 28, and even 2029. And you have an opportunity because, in theory, this should be an easy win for the Hurricanes Saturday against Syracuse. Emphasis on the word should, because Syracuse is awful right now. But if you're going to make this win look easy, a lot of that is riding on your offense. Now, we all remember how the narrative was last year and how the script is completely flipped this year. Last year, the offense was good enough to win every game Miami played. The defense let them down repeatedly. This year, the defense has been good enough to win every game Miami has played so far, and the offense has let you down repeatedly. Because Miami's defense, even in their losses, hasn't given up more than 26 points, and that was in overtime. In regulation, Hurricanes D has not surrendered more than 24 points all season long. They gave up 20 in regulation before the 26 or the final 6 points were put up in overtime against SMU. So there are definitely things to micromanage on the defense. We can do that another day, but I want to focus on the offense today because the defense has been good enough. It's a college football playoff caliber defense, but the offense has let them down time and time again. And I've taken a look at some comparisons from last season, taking a look at a lot of the numbers and a deep dive on some of this stuff because I really want to understand, and some of these things are very obvious, and we'll talk about the penalties, we'll talk about the interceptions. Like, there are very obvious reasons why the offense hasn't been good enough, but there are some other things that you dive a little deeper and you understand why this thing isn't churning in the right direction offensively. And I believe some of these factors seem fixable, although 8 games into the season, you haven't fixed some of these things yet. Can you? Other things feel less fixable because for certain personnel reasons. But let's take a look at this first factor. This is something that I probably haven't talked about enough this season on Locked On Canes, is yards per carry from your rushing attack. You thought of Miami's rushing attack last year, Miami's offense in general, as being more of a pass-heavy offense, all the explosive chunk plays picked up by Cam Ward. And I think that did play a factor in making the running game more explosive and more consistently successful. The Hurricanes last season averaged 5.7 yards per carry. They were near the top of the country in that metric, 5.7. They've taken a dip this year with more of a rush-heavy attack down to 4.2. 1.5 yard per carry dip is a significant one. And if you look at the personnel, Mark Fletcher is still doing fine in that regard. His yards per carry last year was at 5.4. It's at 5.1 this year, so it's a dip, but a really, really small dip. Fletcher overall has been Miami's best running back this season, so I don't put a whole lot of heat on him. Something Miami obviously is missing from last year, a couple things. Damian Martinez had a great year. He finished at a 6.3 yard per carry average. Miami doesn't have anything close to that this year. In fact, Fletcher's 5.1 is the leading yard per carry that Miami has at the moment. And the Hurricanes also had a season ago, and personnel is only a part of this, folks, because offensive philosophy, the success of your quarterback being a running threat. I'm not saying that there's just one factor to this, but Jordan Lyle has obviously not had the impact this year than he had a year ago. Now, in the case of Jordan Lyle, there's context for it. And this is one of the things that I'm hoping makes this thing fixable from his point of view, from Jordan Lyle's point of view, because this season, he spent the early part of the season injured. And then once he was able to come back a few weeks ago, he's been working his way through and trying to work his way back into the rotation. It's been a little clunky at times. But Jordan Lyle a season ago had his breakout true freshman year, 7.4 yards per carry. He was your home run threat. He was your big play threat when it came to the rushing attack. Lyle, and I understand there are reasons why he's not been explosive yet, is just at 3.3 yards per carry this year. So that has taken a big element away from your running game. And I would think for Lyle, I still have hope that, him being as healthy as he's been all season, that's right now, and him getting more opportunities is going to spark that running game a little bit more. And opportunity could be knocking this week. We'll know more when the final injury reports come out. Miami's going to put out a Thursday night injury report to the ACC tonight, then the Friday night tomorrow. But I'm not expecting Mark Fletcher to play this week, which obviously isn't good, but it does give more of an opportunity. You'd imagine Marty Brown is probably your starting running back. Jordan Lyle probably your number 2 and probably plays a lot. So if we're going to go towards, enhancing his YPC from 3.3 into the 4s or the 5s this weekend could really help him. And Syracuse's rushing defense, by the way, it's 123rd in the country. So I'm sure they're going to go heavy box because everybody does against Miami, but you should be able to find more success on the ground. So this could be a big game for Lyle, okay? So yards per carry being down, and there are other reasons why, and we'll talk about it, but yards per carry being down is a big factor we don't talk about enough. A factor we talk about all the time, but let's do some comparisons to last year, are the penalties, right? We harp on penalties as we should. It's been a big Achilles heel for this team. And penalties are, parts coaching, because where's the discipline? What are you working on in practice? And it's obviously part execution, because the players are the ones literally committing the penalties. There's blame to go around on that one. Miami is averaging 8 penalties per game this year for 63.5 yards. So you're giving away 63.5 yards free average per game and 8 penalties per game. That's a little bit up from last year. Miami committed 6.6 penalties per game last season, which was still too much last year, but a big difference. Last season, Miami had a more explosive offense and a quarterback who gave you so many more dimensions because he could run and he would make. I mean, listen, Cam Ward is a different species, like the way he was able to improvise and make plays down the field, but the offense was more equipped last year to overcome penalties, and they committed too many last year. They're committing way too many this year, averaging a penalty and a half more per game than they were a season ago. Other big differences on the offense, right? When we talk about, the running game, why is the running game not more explosive this year? The run blocking has not been as effective from the offensive line. I'm not going to completely rip the O-line, though, because Miami's pass protection has been even better statistically than it was a year ago. The run blocking has taken a significant dip, but the pass blocking has been elite. Miami this year is top 6 in the country in fewest sacks given up per game. They average just 0.7 given up. Now, listen, part of that is Carson Beck doesn't hold the football as long as Cam Ward did last year. I get that. But if you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, Miami actually keeps an even higher percentage of clean pockets than they did a year ago. The pass blocking has been fine. The run blocking has not been as good. And specifically and especially from the interior. That's been the issue. We've all seen James Brockermeyer at center has been pushed back a lot, which has affected Miami's holes for the running game. Inez Cooper, his run blocking statistically has taken a dip from last year, and left guard has been a problem issue. So Miami's offensive tackles have been fine, but the interior has not done as good of a job against the run. And then, of course, something that affects your overall running game is, a quarterback who's not a true running threat this year. It's an extra dynamic that Miami does not have with Carson Beck this season. I know he, every now and again he scrambles, but when Carson Beck runs, it reminds me of, you ever have those recurring nightmares where like there's something awful chasing you? There's like a monster or a villain chasing you and you're trying to run away. You're trying to run away as fast as you can, but your legs aren't working. Your feet aren't moving, or you're stuck in quicksand. It's like, that's kind of how it looks when Beck takes off and scrambles. It's not, he does it every now and again, picks up a positive yard every now and again, but it's not a true running threat. I mentioned Jordan Lyle, healthy last year. Miami has not had that this year. A couple of other important factors I want to get to on the other side, including the tight end production. I didn't realize how spoiled we were last season until I watched things play out this year. You want to keep it locked. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. My friends, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join their free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Make sure if you check out our second episode from Wednesday, had a full breakdown on Miami versus Syracuse. And we were joined by Jackson Holzer of Locked On Syracuse. And if you don't understand why I keep saying this should be an easy win Saturday 3:30 for Miami, if you want to understand how bad Syracuse has been, you need to watch that episode from Wednesday and let Jackson Holzer from Locked On Syracuse explain it. Because if you don't believe me when I say it, yeah, of course the Miami guy is going to say that Miami should blow out Syracuse. If you don't understand Syracuse's quarterback situation and you want to get up to speed on that, check out our crossover episode on Miami versus Syracuse with Jackson Holzer. And this to me, and we've talked about a number of the offensive factors already, the yards per carry being down, the penalties being up. There were too many last year, way too many this year. And okay, one thing when I'm talking about the penalties, I didn't mention, what you can do to fix it. And there are a couple reasons why. Number one, I don't know, because they have been working on these things, drilling these things in practice. There are referees at every single practice, and I know Mario Cristobal is harping on it. I mean, I wonder if they're thinking about it too much, and that was one of the things Cristobal mentioned. It's like, you don't want to kind of change the way guys play completely because they're always worried about flags getting thrown, but it has been a nightmare, self-inflicted wounds in the form of penalties. It's been an absolute horror show for the team this year, and that is something they are going to need to fix through discipline and just constant thought. Like, you cannot be mentally lazy. And yeah, you want to see the penalties go down this week. I mean, the last time Miami played like a truly inferior opponent, of course, I believe we're more talented than most every team we've played this year, but when they played Stanford a couple weeks ago, they only committed 5 penalties for 30 yards. You should be even under that against Syracuse. Like, one or two penalties, because we know the officiating is also bad. Like if you commit, 2 penalties for 10 yards, I can excuse that. I'm not expecting a goose egg of penalties, but we need to see Miami cut that down this week against inferior opposition. And then, when the games get tougher again, you need to see them, practice good habits on the field this weekend and keep those down in the future. The tight end position has been a massive drop-off this year from last year. I mean, how much we miss Elijah Arroyo's brilliance, nearly 600 receiving yards last year. He was also a good blocker, but Arroyo, and I watch him on Sundays with the Seattle Seahawks. He just scored a touchdown this past weekend. I'm like, I miss you. I miss you, Elijah. Where are you? Why couldn't you have another year of eligibility? Actually, he did have another year, but he left early. I don't blame him because he had all those injury troubles in college. Get to the league. I don't blame him for that. But we miss Elijah Arroyo's brilliance. I mean, you think about the option he could give Carson Beck in the passing game this year. And the low-key part of it is, because Arroyo was the headline maker at tight end last year, we miss old man Cam McCormick. 9 years of eligibility. He played his 9th and final season last year. If he could have stretched that out to 10, Cam McCormick, such a solid blocker, and also in 2024 was a clutch receiver. He made some big plays in the passing game, and we miss Riley Williams as well. Now, Riley, I know he transferred because he was homesick, which is legit because you don't go out of your way to play for the Oregon State Beavers, who are awful. You don't go out of your way to transfer there if it's not because you're homesick. His family is from the Pacific Northwest. He wanted to be back over there. And we miss Riley Williams as well. I mean, he made some important plays as a receiver, but a monster blocker. Like, we really, really miss those guys because Elijah Lofton's having a bad year. Bad year. And I know he had to work his way through injuries that affected him in fall camp and probably still affect him to this day. I don't know how his body is feeling right now, but the production has not been there. And, the production has not been consistent enough, from the likes of Alex Bauman, who transferred in. I know our guy, the truth teller, and I don't disagree with him, give chances to some of these younger guys if you need to. I mean, we've seen good stuff in spots from Luka Gilbert and Brock Schott. Like, I understand these guys are true freshmen. That's why they haven't been playing as much. They don't have the experience to build up that trust, but maybe we do need to give more looks to these younger guys. I'm just thinking out loud on that. Miami's passing game has been explosive at times from Carson Beck to the likes of Malachi Toney, who's phenomenal. I mean, thank goodness we have this guy. And CJ Daniels. CJ's probably he is going to miss this game and probably the game after that. But the big play threat overall has not been as consistent as it was a season ago. Carson Beck, he can be effective. He plays within the context of the offense pretty well, but the offense is not explosive enough to overcome the penalties and the miscues consistently. Okay. This was really just an issue against SMU, so hopefully it gets corrected consistently. Short yardage, obviously, I talk about the yards per carry overall being low for the offense. Against SMU, there were a couple of short yardage plays where Miami failed, where they don't usually fail. Maybe they did have one of those in the Louisville game as well. But yeah, you need to get short yardage back on track in the running game. And then a huge factor, we've talked about this before, I'll talk about it again, the nature of Miami's ball control style of offense. It's negated the talent too much. This team appears to play to shorten the game and control the clock. Fewer possessions. That shortens the margins for the opponent and gives less talented teams a better chance to beat you because you give your own talent fewer opportunities to score and get the football. All right, I mean, listen, ball control may be a good strategy when you're going up against Notre Dame and you have a lead. Maybe not the best strategy when you're going up against SMU and you have a lead, for example. And I believe at least part of it, and we had a conversation about this with Kelvin Harris, former Miami Hurricanes offensive lineman and 3-time national champ yesterday. I believe at least part of this philosophy is a knee-jerk from last year, after Miami lost to Syracuse because they kept their foot on the gas. And they probably ran too many plays and then gave, Syracuse the ball too many times. And so now Mario Cristobal has apparently course corrected, but probably too far in the other direction, right? We were making games too long last year. Let's make them too short this year. They need to find the happy medium. Now, the Hurricanes, they really should beat Syracuse by a 40 burger this week. Cuse is that bad. But shortening the game, playing ball control, shortening it, that's a factor that could keep this game closer than it should be. So they need to keep their foot on the gas this week, especially in a situation these final 4 weeks where, if you do want to pull off a miracle and try to sneak into the college football playoff, you not only have to win, you have to earn style points. Like, you need to impress, because the committee, they are not computers, the committee. They care about how you look. They care about the product you're putting on TV. If you want to make the CFP, you not only have to win, you have to impress them. And hopefully they are watching if things go well. Hopefully they're not watching if things don't go well. So Miami ranks 44th nationally in points per game at 32 per contest. And obviously that includes, the Bethune-Cookman game where they scored 45. So being 44th in scoring offense, that's average. That's not up to the standard. Like, average is not the standard at the University of Miami. You should be in the top 20 conservatively in that stat of points per game. And in their 2 losses, Miami averages just 20.5 points per game. Scored 21 points against Louisville, scored just 20 points against SMU. All right, we'll talk some recruiting when we come back, because there are a handful of important flip targets visiting and some big-time players in future classes. Also, current Miami commits are visiting. You want to make sure we keep these young men locked in, because we're less than 30 days away from National Signing Day. And you want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, we're only getting started with FanDuel. Now, Hurricanes are 4 touchdown favorites at FanDuel.com this weekend. And by the way, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I take you around the conference. We talk about the College Football Playoff Committee and the preferential treatment for Notre Dame. Locked On ACC is available free wherever you get your podcasts, and available free on YouTube. All right, so flip targets that are going to be on the visiting list this weekend for the Syracuse game. A Penn State commit. Now, Penn State commits. Now, this player has not officially decommitted from Penn State, but he's looking around, right? James Franklin, I know fans would say the guy can't win the big game. He was very popular with his players and with his recruits. So the James Franklin firing and not knowing who their next coach is going to be has, it's caused a lot of Penn State commits. If they haven't decommitted outright, they're looking around. And 3-star defensive lineman Isaac Chukwura, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, if not, I apologize, but I'll call him Isaac. He's looking around. He's a really good player. 6'2", 260-pound defensive lineman. He's out of Bear, Delaware. I know Delaware is not what you think of as a recruiting hotbed, but he is the number 1 rated player in the entire state of Delaware. Delaware, that's Penn State country, I guess, in recruiting. But as we know, Mario Cristobal has made Miami recruiting national, and even in some cases international, right? Akeem Mesidor is Canadian. There's actually another Canadian who might be visiting Miami this weekend. But national, international recruiting, this is a good player who's looking around. So 3-star defensive lineman Isaac Chukwura. He's been a player that's been on our radar for the last couple of weeks. 3-star defensive lineman committed to Pittsburgh, Logan Nagel. Love his size, and I think the staff loves his size as well, that this guy can be developed into a monster. Logan Nagel, 6'5", 270 pounds. He's out of Wayne, New Jersey. And, you know, it's usually not a bad strategy to look at a few of the players that Pat Narduzzi recruits on defense, because Narduzzi has an eye for talent on that side of the football. And like, I'm not saying Miami's evals aren't really, really good. I think they are, but if your evals also match up with Pat Narduzzi's evals, that's probably a good sign. So that's another player from the Northeast. So here's a player. This guy isn't on the visitors list that I have, but I would trust this source that if they say he's visiting, probably visiting. Gabby Arudi at Inside the U says Miami is also going to be hosting 4-star defensive lineman Carter Gooden. He's committed to UCLA. So he's committed to play across the country. And obviously UCLA, another team with a head coaching opening, right? You don't know who their head coach is going to be right now. He's committed to UCLA, but he's from the East Coast. He's from Tabor Academy in Marlin, Massachusetts. According to Inside the U, he's going to visit this weekend. And this is the player who's originally from Canada. 6'4", 260-pounder. He's a top 100 prospect on 24/7 Sports, so he's the highest graded out of these flip targets visiting this weekend. He's a top 100 player. He's a top 15 defensive lineman, and he is the top player out of Massachusetts, another state that's not, you know, the richest of recruiting beds, but he's the number one player in that entire state. That is worth watching this weekend. So other players on the list that I have for recruits this weekend, I think these are in alphabetical order, not order of class. 2028 recruit. Now, I know that's far down the road, but quarterback Neiman Lawrence out of Miami Northwestern, that's an excellent player. You definitely want to get yourself in the mix for Lawrence. So I'm glad he's visiting. He's right down the road. Of course, you want to keep great players home if you can. 2027 running back Elijah Kimball out of Canisius, New York. 2028 running back Taj Moore out of DeLand, Florida. 2027 running back Braden Tyson out of Brookwood High School in Georgia. 2029 is way down the road, but a good player. 2029 offensive lineman Rashard Williams out of Chaminade, Madonna. Obviously, you want to get as many of those players as you can. Here's some Miami commits who are visiting. You want to keep these young men locked in. 2026 wide receiver Samorian Wingo, 4-star wide receiver. He is saying all the right things about being locked in with Miami. Glad to have Wingo for a visit out of St. Augustine, Florida. Mission Viejo, California, 4-star receiver Vance Spafford, another awesome player who's committed to Miami. He's visiting. Here's one I love from the class of 2027. 4-star, borderline, he might be a 5-star actually, borderline 4-star, 5-star Miami Northwestern wide receiver Nick Lanier. We love us some Nicholas Lanier. He's visiting this weekend, class of 2027. 2029 tight end Derek Fletcher, 2029 defensive lineman Kimani Nicholas. They're both from Bishop Verot High School over in Fort Myers area. 2027 defensive lineman Jaden Bryant out of South Carolina. I mentioned Isaac Chukwura, flip target, committed to Penn State. Montana Toilolo out of Mater Dei, California. I mean, and listen, I'd love to get some players from Mater Dei, one of the best, probably the best high school program in the country. He's a class of 2027 defensive lineman. Miami committed linebacker / edge rusher Justin Edwards. Miami committed, Justin Edwards is the true linebacker. Jordan Campbell is the one who's a linebacker / edge rusher. They're both visiting. Justin Edwards, linebacker, J.J. Edwards, they call him, out of Orlando, and Jordan Campbell out of Carroll City, who's he might convert to edge when he gets to Miami. Miami committed cornerback Jalen Seatbelt Waters is visiting. Committed corner Camden Portis is visiting. 2027 corner out of St. John Bosco High in California, another mega program, Jacob Whitehead is visiting. Defensive end Ashari Charles out of Venice. Miami commit, is visiting. Caleb Spivey, defensive end out of Alabama, class of 2027, great player, is visiting. Tyseer Young, defensive end out of Delaware. We got the whole Delaware crew down here this week. He is visiting. Antonio Wilcher, defensive lineman out of Miami Southridge, class of 2028, is visiting. And there is also a 2030 athlete who I don't claim to know anything about, named Dante Anderson, who is visiting. 2030 is when you get to 2030, that's Larry Bluestein territory. Like Donno can't tell you anything about anybody after like 2027, really. I've really looked at a 2028 and beyond yet, outside of a couple players. But Larry Bluestein can probably give you like 2036 prospects. He's that deep with this stuff. So maybe we'll have to have Blue on again later. But let's go through Canesport.com. Put down, Miami. There are certain teams that are like basically already locked into the college football playoff at this point in a number of spots. There's obviously going to be 5 automatic bids to conference winners. It's almost impossible for Miami to win the ACC, so you're not going to get an auto bid, and you're basically fighting for 2 at-large spots with a bunch of other teams. I think there's 10 teams, including Miami, that are going to be in the hunt for 2 at-large spots. Obviously, for any of this to mean anything, Miami has to win out. We take it one game at a time. Syracuse this Saturday, get it done. Then we'll talk about NC State. Then we'll talk about Virginia Tech. Then we'll talk about Pitt. So Miami obviously has to win out for any of this to mean anything. But the other teams you're contending with are number 10, Notre Dame. It's got 2 losses. They've got easy games except for Pittsburgh. That's the only tough opponent left for them. 2-loss, number 11, Texas. They have some tough games remaining. They play against a ranked Georgia on the road and against Texas A&M. They could lose both of those pretty easily. 2-loss, number 12, Oklahoma. Miami is fighting against for a spot. They've got tough road games ahead. They've got tough games remaining against Alabama and Missouri. 2-loss, number 13, Utah. No ranked opponents remaining for Utah. 1-loss, number 15, Louisville, who also has the head-to-head against Miami. Now, remember, head-to-head only matters if you're not Miami. If you are not Miami, they will value head-to-head. If you are Miami, doesn't matter if you have a head-to-head win. But Louisville has the head-to-head against Miami, and they have no ranked opponents left. 2-loss Vanderbilt at number 16 they still have Tennessee is their only ranked opponent left. And 1-loss, number 17, Georgia Tech, has a tough game remaining against Georgia. You'd like them to lose that because Georgia is basically a lock. So you want Georgia to beat Georgia Tech. You got 2-loss, number 19, USC. They have a tough game remaining against Oregon. 2-loss, number 21, Michigan, faces Ohio State in the regular season finale. That's been an automatic win for them for years, maybe not this year. So, those are the other teams that you look at that are fighting with Miami, a bunch of teams that you're fighting with for probably 2 open spots in the college football playoff, because there are automatic bids that you will not get one of those 5, and then you've got, other teams that are essentially locked in. Miami is obviously not one of those. So, again, none of this matters if you don't win on Saturday. So, we'll talk more about the Syracuse game tomorrow. Make sure to smash that like button, hit the thumbs up, and subscribe to Locked On Canes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.